Today, we speak to Morgan Eckroth, 2022 US Barista Champion, second place in the World Barista Championship, and one of the most recognizable coffee creators with over 8 million followers online. Morgan has turned their passion for coffee and hospitality into a career that blends competition, content creation, and community.
This is the only avenue, this is the only path I have right now. I have to make this work. Not only do I have to do this to graduate, but now it's this additional motivator of like, this is the only platform that's paying me right now. And so even more so, I need to do this to like survive. You get second 3 times in a row and you go, clearly I'm missing a piece of the puzzle. And I was like, I need to take a break creatively. I need to take a break mentally. But on top of that, like I need greater context to this competition. So I walked away from that season, learned a lot of hard lessons. And then COVID happened. Everything was so truncated that year. And it was really, really hard, but I could literally feel my brain like stretching during that season.
Welcome to By the Drip, the channel about the people behind the coffee and the passion that fuels it. We're 2 brothers who spent our lives chasing something deeper than just great coffee. From walking farms in remote corners of the world to training and coaching the last 2 World Barista Champions. I'm David Crosby, founder of Rosso Coffee Roasters, the roaster behind back-to-back world champion wins. And I'm with my brother, Cole Terode, founder of Forward Coffee, sourcing some of the most inspiring coffees from Panama and building lasting relationships at origin. This isn't just a channel about coffee, it's about community, an obsession, and the pursuit of excellence. 1 cup, 1 story, 1 coffee at a time.
Welcome back to By the Drip. We are joined today with the internet's friendliest barista, Morgan Eckroth. Morgan, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to By the Drip. So glad to have you on.
It's such an honor to be here. Genuinely, I have been subscribed to the newsletter for probably close to since the beginning of it. So this is very, very fun.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. You've sent some very candid, heartwarming emails to keep the support going and keep momentum in our sales. So genuinely, those mean a lot. Thank you for those through the years. We just rolled over 1 year of writing that newsletter.
It's exciting. That's a lot.
This week did our 52nd week, which is
how does it feel?
Fascinating to say the least. It's hard. It's super hard, to
once
do
a week. Like kind of conceptually doesn't seem like a lot on paper, but once a week is a lot to put out, especially with how in depth you go and By the Drip.
And just figuring out the topics, figuring out the deep dive on that week and trying to create a bit of a structure around it has been a challenge. Dave and I are not writers by trade or background or anything like that. Dave can hardly speak English fluently, so he struggles. I got to get
He's not here to defend himself.
He's not here to defend himself, but I'll maybe see if we can edit in a clip of him showing up over my shoulder to make some face at me. We'll see if we're talented enough to do that. Morgan, would love to. We really like starting our conversations with a very simple question, and that is how did you get your start in coffee, and just a little bit of the storyline, of your journey into specialty coffee.
Yeah, definitely. I got started in coffee back in early 2017. I was a pretty late bloomer when it comes to coffee drinking. I didn't grow up in a family that drank coffee at all. And so my first exposure to any type of coffee was when I was, I think, around 16, and went into my first specialty coffee shop and like kind of had that like mind blown moment where I was like, I don't understand why this feels so cool, but there's something here that I want to dive deeper into. And so I spent the next 2 years like kind of sending in like poorly done applications to this coffee shop, trying to get a barista job. And finally, when I was 18 and starting college, I got a job there, which was really, really fun. Instantly just like clicked with working with coffee. I loved the hospitality aspect of it. And so I was a barista in Corvallis, Oregon for all 4 years of college.
Okay.
And then kind of simultaneous to that, about 3 years in, I started doing kind of the online thing as well. And my My degree is in marketing, and I knew I wanted to go into some like creative related field in the coffee industry, but didn't really know what that looked like or where it would be. And so for me, starting to do video creation was genuinely just me trying to like learn these kind of hard skills that I knew I would have to take into whatever my next job would be. Alongside that too, I was starting to compete as well, and then after college, I graduated into the COVID pandemic. So food and beverage, of course, was like on fire. There was no jobs. I like barely had a barista job and was like hanging on to that. And so that's when I really started focusing in on Morgan Drinks Coffee and taking it really seriously and being like, if I want to work or like talk about coffee any longer, like this really is the only avenue. And so figuring out how to translate like the part of hospitality and like customer service that I loved in coffee into the online space was like really what got everything started. Eventually, I ended up going back to work as a barista alongside that. Continued competing. I won the US Barista Championship in 2022 and also started working on the marketing. It feels like so long ago now. Uh, After that, I also started working on the marketing team for Onyx Coffee Lab, and that's kind of been life for the last like three and a half years now.
That's life for the last 3.5 years.
It's a
Incredible.
busy one.
There's a lot. There is a lot there we're going to talk about, a lot there I want to dive into. Of course, your work at Onyx and some of the fantastic job you do there in the marketing communication side of things. You know, one of the best content creation, roastery, brand package, full deal that I believe exists today. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. I want to talk about your competition experience, definitely, and dive into that. I want to talk about that new setup you gave me the quick tour of in your space and what that looks like for the future. Of course, we're going to talk about Morgan Drinks Coffee and your 10 million plus.
I think
That's
getting there.
That's a
I
question
think
mark.
eight. I had to do this math for someone the other day for something else. I think it's 8.7. So we're
8.7
getting there.
million with an M subscribers on different social platforms collectively. Incredible. But Morgan, most importantly, I want to slide back to the beginning of your story there. You said you walked into a coffee shop and you had a beverage that just changed the whole perspective for you. What was that?
The first coffee drink I ever had was I think it was a 16-ounce hot mocha. And it
Yeah.
was, it's like hot
yeah.
chocolate with just like a little bit of coffee sprinkled in there. And that was my drink for a very, very long time. I will say it was an expensive drink habit to keep up during high school when I was a very poor high school student. But that was the starting point for me. And I have always like really loved milk drinks. Like I've always kind of enjoyed the idea of you have to prepare the coffee really well, but you also have this other ingredient that you need to prepare equally as well for these two things to mesh together. And so
Totally.
milk were my starting point, and then I slowly worked down to cappuccinos and, got to the other side pretty quickly.
Right. Morgan, that's the same beverage that I got into the space. So Dave, my brother, had started Rosso Coffee in 2007, kind of 2008, 2009. I was 17, 18. I'm going into the cafe and I'm drinking large mochas, 16-ounce mochas and Ghirardelli syrup and like, oh yeah, those are good. Every now and then, I don't know, are you the same? Every now and then you go in for a mocha and have yourself a little like cheat day?
I'm the same. My dream like kind of indulgent coffee order is like just a little like 6-8 ounce mocha and then like a little cappuccino cup full of black drip coffee.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. So you get sort of the cheat code on one side and then you get the more purists.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you don't feel like you don't feel too bad about your actions. And
yeah. I'm like, I promise I'm an adult here. Like I've got both.
That's great. That's great. Everybody listening, mochas are great. We love mochas. Continue supporting your local mocha at your shop. You mentioned hospitality was the big driver for you to continue in coffee in those early days. What does hospitality mean to you, Morgan?
Yeah, for sure. Hospitality for me, I mean, and this might be like kind of a standard answer, but I think it really like means meeting people where they are with kindness. Like when I
Okay.
was first going into like coffee shops, especially like on my own, it's just kind of like this gangly, like I didn't know what I was talking about, didn't know what I was ordering, and I was probably pretty annoying to the baristas. Some really special barista experiences where I would sit on the like corner of the back bar, like right next to the handoff point. And I would just like ask questions. Like I was asking them like why they were like tapping out their milk, like what different size drinks were, and like the care and attention and willingness to like answer those questions and like go above and beyond what kind of like the base job description that they had was really, really impactful for me and made me feel both like cared for in that space, but also like very much at home. And so for me, hospitality is like figuring out how to pass on that feeling to other people now in my role.
Okay. And so that experience you talk about, is that in a specific coffee shop? This is the shop that you put your resume in numerous times?
It is. It's the downtown location of Tried and True Coffee in Corvallis. And it was this tiny, like, hole in the wall downtown location, like barely 10 seats. And so when the cafe was full, everyone's kind of like sitting on top of each other and it's too hot because
Cool.
all the machines are on. And it was a great space.
Cool. It sounds like a very much life-defining space and environment for you by the way that you talk about it now and how you've rolled some of that into your current day to day.
Most
So you
definitely.
take hospitality and you take the I'm going to summarize what I heard there is sort of going above and beyond the expectation of the client
Yeah,
without
definitely.
without maybe without maybe the willingness or need to receive anything back for that additional service or experience. How do you mentioned you wanted to take that into your world of content creation, and I'm so curious how you connect. We're behind a screen right now, but of course we're in live action talking to each other. How do you take that sense of hospitality or that definition or feeling of hospitality and put that into the videos that you're putting out into the world without necessarily having somebody sitting right in front of you as you put that persona out there? Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. No, it's a question I've thought about for a long time, and I have like finally like worked through kind of an analytical answer to it because for a while it was
Okay.
very just like amorphous and like ephemeral, and I was like, I don't have words, I just have vibes to answer this question.
Okay. Yeah.
I think the like example of like I'll call it digital hospitality for lack of a better word.
Okay.
Example
Love
that
that.
I have provided or put together in different video series over the years are the I don't do them super often anymore, but for many, many years I did these kind of like cafe vignettes where it was just 30-45 second videos of just like moments you would experience in a cafe. And so I would be both characters, I'd be both barista, customer, and they'd be super simple. There was no punchline to these moments. My goal with them was if you were a fly on the wall, like watching an interaction happen in a cafe. Um, and my goal with those was to highlight these little moments of like kind of human kindness that we experience every day, whether you're working in coffee or anywhere else in customer service, and like give them a moment to breathe and bring attention to them. Because I think there's like so much emotional work and emotional nuance that baristas and customer service workers have to be aware of and provide to people that oftentimes when you're just like zipping through your day, you might not notice them nearly as much and you might not appreciate them. And so that was my kind of starting goal. And I did my best to kind of achieve a feeling to these videos that was calm and peaceful and kind of like reverent in a way. And so, they were very simply shot. There wasn't anything moving. The music was always super intentional to kind of set the emotional tone of the video.
Yeah.
Um, and I started getting all these comments after a while of people being like, my gosh, I'm like tearing up watching these and I have no idea why I am. And first of all, I was like, that's very funny because I spent like 5 minutes editing that and I'm so glad it's doing anything for you. But I started to like sit back and think about it a little bit more. And I think it's this, just acknowledgement of people as people that's really special. And those types of videos forced you to kind of live that for 30 seconds while you're scrolling super loud, crazy like internet feeds. And so for me, that's what started to feel like digital hospitality is carving out just like 30 seconds in the middle of your doom scroll to just like sit and like feel good for a minute.
I love that. I love the middle of the doom scroll because I'm putting myself in the shoes of myself, doom scrolling and going, ooh, Morgan posted something. And then seeing, I can envision a lot of those videos, seeing that recurring theme of you wiping down the counter, kind of looking across the room.
I thought that was like my comfort movement of like, this is a barista thing to do, is to wipe the counter. And
Totally.
Eventually people picked up that I was continually doing that. And so there was this running gag of like, the counter is clean enough. Like, stop wiping it.
I'm convinced you only ever filmed that scene once, and it's the same recurring theme that you've just continued because you use the same. You have kind of a uniform in that in that series, right?
The black turtleneck. I've got
the black turtleneck
in that bin over there.
There you go. On demand, on demand with options.
Anytime you want it.
I love it. So. Does the inspiration for taking that hospitality, does that root in the moment of you sitting on this side of the bar as the client receiving the hospitality, or does that come from the other role when you were behind the bar and maybe expressing that sort of same service and experience outward? Or do you think it comes from kind of both perspectives in your experience?
I think for me, it very much came from both. Back when I was working barista shifts super regularly up through 2023 before I finally had to I was working like 4 jobs and I'm like, all right, I have to work maybe 3 jobs is more manageable than 4.
Okay. Try to get to 1. That might simplify your life a little
bit. I'm trying. Back when I was working regular barista shifts and doing this, I literally had like a very scattered notes folder in my phone that I would like whenever I had moments in the cafe and just regular interactions, if I was like, oh, there's like something there, or like that felt really good, or like, whatever that would be, I would like notate that on shift. And so I think during that period of my content, it was very much driven from like my actions behind bar. But
okay,
as I shifted into a like role in coffee that is much more behind the scenes, and like I like work in a studio and not behind bar super regularly anymore, I make a lot of effort to go to a lot of cafes like in my weekly schedule. And so after that, the attention kind of shifted to more what I was experiencing from other baristas. So it's at different points in my life, it's definitely come from both perspectives.
Cool. The lived experience through and through from both sides of the coin there. I love that. And that series, you call it a series? Yeah, is that the right language? That series of your content, I think, is like so heartwarming. There's so many just like candid, warm moments that personally, watching those videos and seeing your barista character check in on the person sitting across the room or whatever, all of that stuff is like so close to home, at least as I watch through those and experience some of those. I didn't wear a black turtleneck in all of them, so maybe my experience is a little bit different than what you're feeling.
It changes the game, frankly. It just makes everything so much, yeah.
There's a little attitude. There's a little bit of a mood in that turtleneck. I love that. So your efforts going into the content creation side of coffee, they didn't start with that skit. Am I correct? They started more with like home approachability and looking at equipment and sort of different beverage creation.
So it was kind of twofold. Back when I'll rewind to like the very beginning. So the first platform that I was ever like creating content for, video specifically, was TikTok, and this was back in very beginning of 2019. So this was like before TikTok had really become what it is today. It had, it was this was when it was like very embarrassing to be on it, and if people said they saw me there, I was like, no, you didn't. That like couldn't have been me.
In the black turtleneck? No, that's not me.
Yeah, no, not at all. But back when I very first started, a lot of the videos I was posting were like kind of just like me at work. Like I would be like pouring latte art and be like, hey, like film me like pouring this. I think it's gonna be like a good tulip or something. And so it was like, pretty low effort, just kind of like day in the life sort of stuff.
Okay.
I pretty quickly, I think within 2 or 3 months, fell upon the format of doing like barista centered skits. At that point, for 2 or 3 years, those skits, I think they're a really important part in like kind of my content journey and ethos behind what I create. But at that point in time, those skits were definitely through a much more like satirical kind of humorous lens. And so there usually was a punchline, and it unfortunately usually was the customer. And it was kind of what you'd expect of like, the customer doesn't understand what they're ordering, or like the barista doesn't understand. And I did that for a while to like a decent amount of success before I realized that like that wasn't the message and how I wanted to portray how I view coffee. So all of that was happening in short form video. And then within a year of doing that, I decided I should probably move to YouTube as well and dive into that. And so that's when I really started focusing more on like home baristas and gear review. And so ton of like, weird at home coffee drink recipes, tons of like machine reviews. And so there's always been a little bit of a divide of short form has always been more narratively driven, where long form has always been more of your kind of standard YouTube fare, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, I wouldn't put you in the category of standard necessarily. I think there's a lot of
very kind.
I
often
want to put
do
yourself
so.
in that category, you're welcome to, but I'm going to defend you on this one. And then just everything kind of, when did everything take off for you? When did the ball really start rolling, and how long did it take to really feel the momentum and go, oh wow, what I'm doing here is gaining traction, and I need to focus less on my 3 other jobs, 5 other jobs, 10 other jobs at that moment
Right.
in your life, and I need to focus more on doing this because you had the realization maybe that this had legs to really grow and become something bigger than itself.
Yeah. I started seeing growth on TikTok pretty quickly after I started, and I think it was very much right time, right place. Like it was a very early platform. There were very few of us on there as creators compared to what there are now today. And so I was
as creators, or as creators within coffee?
Both, actually.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
the creator sphere as a whole was a lot smaller, but also the coffee creator sphere was like way smaller at that point. I think I
Very
could probably
small, yeah.
count like most people who were doing it on like 2 hands, whereas nowadays it's, there's so many folks out there.
Right.
But I think for me, there's like 2 points here I'll highlight. For me, the minute I realized that this was like something that had legs and like was more than just like a little weird hobby, was I was actually visiting Portland with my dad. My dad had no idea I was on TikTok. I think I had a couple 100,000 followers at that point, which is a lot. But like for me, I was like, this is just like a weird, thing I do on the side. And we were on public transport heading somewhere, and there were these 2 girls, probably like 15 or 16, sitting opposite, and they were like doing the kind of like the whisper thing and like, really clearly like looking at their phone. And my dad's like, what's happening? And I'm like hoping this isn't what it is. And so they end up like coming up.
You're seeing that it's exactly what it is?
It's exactly what it is. They end up coming up and like, kind of being like, is this you? And saying hi. And it was a super sweet moment. And my dad's kind of just like, completely blank, doesn't understand what's happening. And they walk off and he's like, so what do you do online?
Right.
And so that was like one of the first moments where I was like, oh my gosh, real people are seeing these things that I am like putting out. And then kind of the second moment to answer, like when things started to really pick up, like it was truly the COVID pandemic. It was, mid 2020. Most of us in hospitality had either been unemployed at some point at that time, or were currently unemployed. People were just like searching for how to make coffee at home, with their favorite coffee shops being like pulled away from them. And so that was when, especially on YouTube, I started to see a lot of growth, because people were just seeking out this sort of information.
And so did you, I'm assuming that time was a challenging time. Hospitality is all shaken up, and for us, it's a challenging time. I can speak of my own experience, but we're here to speak of yours. Did you see that as an opportunity, or did it take a while for that to kind of click and go, oh wow, I've got to really lean into this moment? And like,
saw it as an opportunity pretty early on. As you have probably gathered from our conversation, I am not someone who likes to be bored or really knows how to be bored. And so when COVID happened, I spent about a month being bored and depressed and playing The Witcher 3. And then the minute I got that out of my system, I was like, all right, it's time to go back to work. What does work mean for me now? And so I like really viewed it as like a fun challenge of like, this is the only avenue, this is the only path I have right now. I have to make this work. There was another element to it all as well that really played into my motivation. For my degree that I was in the midst of getting at the time, we were required to do some sort of either internship or practical learning experience, and I had no time to do that. I was competing, going to school, working, all this stuff. And so I went to my advisor with a really weird idea. And I was like, hey, I've got this platform over here on TikTok. I think I can grow on YouTube. I think I can, I of course like kind of fluffed it up. I was like, I think I can use all the things you have taught me in this marketing school to,
right.
It's like you make it sound what it needs to sound like. But I genuinely was like, I think if I can provide you like, quantifiable reports of like what strategies I've taken or used to grow on YouTube, and like provide that to you in like a report format, could this be an internship? And so they said yes. And the cap we put on it was over the course of, I think it was 4 months. So it was like a quarter. I needed to grow to 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. Like that was the goal of that project. And so I had that approved prior to COVID. And then when COVID happened, I was like, not only do I have to do this to graduate, but now it's this additional motivator of like, this is the only platform that's paying me right now. And so even more so, I need to do this to like survive. And so those two things in conjunction were really, really strong motivators.
Wow. So you essentially pitched to one of your professors or
I don't know why
advisors?
They let me do this. Like every time I explain it, like I don't, nothing makes sense anymore.
Wow. I hope like once a month you pour one coffee out for that person that,
Truly
gave you the green light on building this incredible platform that you have today. That sounds like that was a huge turning point for your life and for, building your career.
Very much so.
Wow. And then you go through COVID, and when do you come out of the digital space and reintegrate? That sounds terrible. It's not the right way to say it.
Reintegrate.
When do you come
so
back into
fiction.
the world and have a true coffee job, true hospitality job once again? Is that in 2020 or 2021?
Yeah, late 2020. I graduated college in early kind of 2020. Weirdly enough, I spent a little bit of time outside of coffee. When my husband and I moved up to Portland, I ended up taking a job as a social media manager for a startup that was working in children's like emotional education toys.
Okay, cool.
Completely separate. I did that for a couple of months before kind of having a very hard realization that it's not just creative work that I wanted to do as a career, but it was creative work in coffee. And so I quit that job. That was like the hard point of Morgan Drinks Coffee is going to be my full-time job. I've graduated college. I don't have that safety net anymore. Now I actually have to do it. And so it was at that point in late 2020 where I went full time with Morgan Drinks Coffee and then also started working part time as a barista again at a cafe called Keeper up here in Portland.
And was, you're coming back to the world of being a barista, active, hands-on, making beverages, large mochas, 16-ounce mochas every day.
Yeah.
I love mochas. I'm going to keep telling you about them.
Please do.
How does your experience change from being behind the bar then to behind the bar now? A few years, sort of maybe a year. It sounds like disconnected from one to the next experience. Is that a totally different lived moment as a barista for you?
It was different in the sense that at the point I went back, Portland specifically, like during that first really big COVID winter, like every day was different. We were like juggling all sorts of restrictions that were changing on quite literally a daily basis. And so working as a barista was a very like chaotic thing. And I
Sounds
think
like a roller coaster ride.
It was a roller coaster. And it also, I think, really pushed me to become better at communication with customers, because not only are you providing like the general, expected hospitality of interacting with people, taking orders, but now you're also navigating these like citywide changes that are impacting how people are experiencing their coffee. And one day they can come in and have it in a ceramic and feel like everything is normal. And the next day we have to tell them like it's in paper and you have to drink it outside. And so that created a lot of friction that was more unusual compared to like kind of just standard barista work that I'd been doing before. And so it was a really big learning experience. I thought it was so valuable before. I think like anytime I work behind bar nowadays, I'm like, anything is easier than that, like 12-month period of time where we were like dealing with the city and customers and like inventory and like all of that.
Right. And today you're in, tomorrow you're out, and you just got to change the expectations, which just added
constantly. Yeah.
Such a layer of stress on top of an already stressful job, right? It's working as a barista can be a very stressful job. And I think to layer that on top is very challenging, very challenging. Did that define a new chapter for your content? I'm very fascinated just going through sort of the history and your arc, and you've got different lived experiences and then different sort of chapters in the creation of your content. Did that end up influencing your direction at all on your digital hospitality?
Very much so. That point actually, those like that really intense season of friction and change is actually the point where I switched over from the sketches that were more grounded in like kind of humor to the sketches that were more like comfort driven that we were talking about at the beginning of this.
Okay, yeah.
And I think a lot of it, for me personally, was reconnecting with why I loved like hospitality and like reminding myself of that, because it was just like, things happen, people, it's just, it's really easy to fall out of love with hospitality and coffee when you're in those high stress situations every day. And so for me, it was like a practice to reground myself, but also just to kind of reground anyone else I could. It's like reminding people that even though we're having to deal with like change and discomfort every day, which like, no, it just sucks. Like no one likes it. There's still two people on either sides of this interaction who are just trying to do their best and trying to be people for each other. And so that was a major shift in my content then, that I have then taken bits and pieces of that and tried to carry it forward into everything I do.
Maybe a way to summarize that is more like humanity got brought into the skits.
That's a great way to say it.
because I think we lost a little sense of humanity in that, chunk of that window of time. I think your content is very powerful. It's always been super fascinating to see what you're putting out there, to see your growth trajectory, to see some of the amazing things, the beverages you make today. I think the world of coffee mixology that you really
So
focused
fun.
on today looks like so much fun. But it's also it's also incredible to see the creative mind that you have going into coffee beverage creation. We don't really have that in existence to the degree that you're pushing it out to the world. So I think you're leading the charge, if you will, in terms of, do you call it coffee cocktails?
Kind of. I've always, I mean, it's like I feel like competition has influenced so much of my language, but I always like signature beverage is
Sure.
usually
Yeah.
what I call it.
Signature beverage. Okay. Let's chat about that for a moment, because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that's been your big focus on your digital presence in maybe the last year or
Yeah,
more. And it sounds like you are putting together maybe a signature beverage recipe book.
maybe. I'm
Maybe.
actually at this exact moment that we are recording this, I am 1 week out from the manuscript being due. So this is a welcomed reprieve from the like typing I will be doing immediately after this.
Wow. So when you say manuscript, this is like a first draft of a document of a what will be a published book.
Yes,
Incredible.
indeed.
And can you give us a little bit of snippet, a
A little
sneak peek,
teaser.
a teaser of what that book might entail?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is a coffee book, obviously.
Okay.
It is
Surprise.
yeah, surprise. One of these days I'm just gonna go write fantasy in like a cabin in the woods. Like that's my ultimate career goal right now. But right now I am writing a coffee book. It is going to be about half of the content is going to be very much I don't want to describe it as coffee 101, but it is like how coffee is grown, how it is processed, what impacts flavor, how to brew it. It's going to have
Okay.
about 10 different types of brewers in there. And then the other bulk of the content is going to be signature coffee recipes. So there's going to be a ton of stuff that I haven't shared anywhere online is going to be in there. And there are also signature beverage recipes developed for every type of brewer that's in the book as well. There's going to be
Wow.
some like kind of short essay slash stories woven in through all of that, kind of my own personal journey in coffee. But I very much view this book as like kind of my brain dump of like everything I know about coffee and how I think about it is going to be laid out there in like a beautifully structured format that someone will help me uh decipher and lay out, because I'm very much a word vomit person, and good luck to whoever reads that.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Morgan, tell me, how are you going to integrate hospitality into that new project, that new endeavor for you?
That's a good question. Um, oh, you might have like stumped me there for a minute. I think for me, my version of like or like element of hospitality that I'm really weaving into that book, um, there's going to be some pretty high level concepts in it. Like I go into like water, we're going into coffee storage. There's going to be like signature beverages in there that are at competition level.
Okay. Yeah.
But the goal of the structure of the book and also the tone throughout the book is that there are no stupid questions, and there's also no assumed knowledge. So if I am talking about a technique or a principle, I'm not just kind of hurling it at you and saying good luck. We're very much starting at the beginning and talking about it in a way that is approachable, even though we are ultimately working towards a concept that is more advanced.
Okay. So trying to distill big concepts, big ideas down into something a mortal man like myself can read through and comprehend.
I think you would have a very easy time reading through it.
I gotta work on my reading skills, but I will definitely get a copy. Definitely get a copy or a few and scatter them around to some friends and family when it does launch. Do you have a goal in mind for actual book
In
launch? What does the timeline look like for that?
in theory, fall of next year. So I think kind of October 26 is about it.
Okay.
Publishing world moves very, very slowly, and like there's so many moving pieces that have to happen before then. So it feels like the book is launching tomorrow, but realistically, it's still over a year away.
Long-term project. Well, that's amazing. Sounds like tons of fun, and I think that'll be a great asset for many baristas and avid coffee consumers around the world. I can't wait for that to come out.
Here's hoping.
Morgan, tell me about your competition experience. You just referenced that this particular publication will have a lot of what you're calling signature beverages that comes from the
Mhm.
World of Barista competition. We've seen you on stage many years now. I think 6 or 7 years of experience that you have under your belt. Do I have that right?
5? I
Five
think
on
5.
the competition side, and then you've also
Yeah.
judged a few times now.
Yes. Yeah.
You've been again in the shoes of the barista and also in the shoes of the consumer receiving it on the other side.
Indeed, indeed. That was a really fun time this last season.
Give me a little bit of an overview of your journey. I know some of the success you've had in the US Barista Championship and on the world stage, but if you could maybe chat about that for a few minutes and talk about why you got into competition. I always find that super fascinating. And then what did the journey look like to climb up to become the US Barista Champion and onward?
Yeah, totally. So I started competing in the US Barista Championship pretty early on in my coffee career. I think I'd been working in coffee as a barista for maybe even less than a year, but definitely right around that 1 year mark.
Okay,
The
cool.
first coffee competition, anything that I ever did was actually a Barista League event. I think it was their very first US event back in Portland, and I did it with my best friend. We were on a team, and it was the first time I had ever been around like a more international group of coffee people. Like I worked in a small town. I'd been like kind of like isolated in that for a long time. And so it really opened my eyes to the larger community of like coffee professionals. And also I just had so much fun doing it. Like I've been in sports throughout most of my life. I have been in the performing arts for most of my life. And that competition was this perfect blend of coffee and then also those other two components that had always been super important. So I left the Barista League event and immediately was like on fire, ready to do whatever was next. And I was lucky enough that the shop owners, Ann and Colin Schneider, who I was working for, had in past years competed in the US Barista Championship. And I remember Colin being like, is that something like we would like to help coach for that again? Like, is that something you would want to do? And I, had been like a little barista, like watching Aga's routines on YouTube. Like I'd already kind of gone down that rabbit hole. And so I was ready to do it at that point, whether my knowledge was there or not. And so started competing. I made it to nationals my very first year, which was shocking. You'll appreciate this. I was the very last person to get through to nationals, and I was tied with the person who had 19th place, and it was like just the most incremental espresso scores that like
Oh no.
got me. It was horrifyingly close.
No way. Okay.
Made it to nationals, did round 1, forgot my signature beverage flavor calls, like didn't clean the machine, like made all the, classic mistakes. Left nationals and was immediately like, all right, like I've already got ideas for the next season.
Sweet.
My second season of competition, I didn't make it to nationals. I scored pretty low in the qualifier, which was a hard experience, but a very good one because it really recalibrated my expectation of like how I needed to prepare for things. I like had the very naive assumption that because I made it to nationals my first year, like that was, that was now the floor for my success.
Of course.
And obviously I would make it again and then I could do better. And it turns out if you have that mentality and then you don't put in the work you need to, like that will not be your result. So I walked away from that season, learned a lot of hard lessons, and then COVID happened. And so our US season like shut down for a full rotation. And then my third season competing was the year I won. And during that time, I had grown a lot as a coffee professional. It had just been so much time. I think it had been almost 2 years since I'd competed last. And I came in with an entirely different approach. I also had the support of Onyx, which was like an incredible, like I basically went through boot camp prior to competing. In the US that year, we had 2 months on the dot to prepare from the point we found out we were competing to being on stage. So like all the script writing, all the coffee sourcing, like everything was so truncated that year. And it was really, really hard, but it like, I felt I could literally feel my brain like stretching during that season. After that, it was like a whirlwind straight into Worlds, of course. That was I could talk about that for an hour, so I'll save you that. But I won the US, went to Worlds, incredible experience. I got second in Worlds that year, and then immediately turned around and was like, all right, let's keep going, I guess.
Back.
Yeah. For me, I really didn't think I would continue competing when I won US. I was like, I guess that's it. Like, I guess I'm done. This is all there is. And for me, that was a really, really sad thing to think about, especially after Worlds. I walked off stage and I remember feeling this like immense sadness, not because of like placement or anything. Like there was so much like excitement and happiness and like we did it, like all of this, but simultaneously to that, I was like sitting there being like, is that the last time am I just saying goodbye to like all of this?
Right.
So I struggled with that for a little bit on whether I wanted to come back or why I wanted to come back was the bigger reason. Ultimately decided I would keep competing. And then I've been runner up in the US for the last 2 years, which has been like an even frankly better like motivating and learning experience. And the last season, which we alluded to, I took the season off and judged just because I'm like, you get second 3 times in a row and you go, clearly I'm missing a piece of the puzzle. And I was like, I need to take a break creatively. I need to take a break mentally. But on top of that, like I need greater context to this competition. And so judging was a fantastic experience. So fun, so challenging. I can't wait to do more of it in the future. But right now I am super excited to kind of turn it back around and go back to the competition side.
Amazing. So you've been second 3 times in a row, twice in the US and once in Worlds. Is that wow? Okay. That's for people listening. One, that's an amazing result that we need to celebrate. That's absolutely incredible. But 2, it's also very challenging psychologically. Correct me if I'm wrong. To know
sure.
that you're this close, but that doesn't matter. You're equally, that far, and it can be very hard to wrap your head around. I remember I came third in Worlds, and I got handed my trophy, and I had the biggest smile on my face because I'm thinking, wow, this is incredible. But I'm at the same time thinking, did they mean to call my name now? I thought I was gonna, I thought they were gonna call my name last.
This is too real.
And it's like, yeah, you're not ready to hear your name get called, and there's a lot of mixed emotion in there. I've seen lots of your presentations. I was in Boston when you won the US Barista Championship and took some of your social media, your digital persona, and sort of pushed that in and onto stage in an accessibility component where people that were tuned in around the world or wherever they might have been could essentially make the same beverage with you at the same time. Do I have that correct?
That's right. Yeah. So my theme for that year was digital accessibility, and I think that routine really worked well that year due to like the time that that competition happened in. Like it was, we were for all intents and purposes still in the throes of COVID, but it was like we were trying this getting together thing out again. There was a ton of people who weren't at the competition because of that. But also, one of the things is that was like a switch in some of the like standards of protocol that competitions had previously, where in prior years all the US competitions were live streamed and like people could tune in that way, and that was
Mm.
the first year in a really long time that the competitions were not live streamed. And so for me that theme was really about how do we make this routine an experience that is felt further than just on this stage. And so how I implemented that was, first of all, I chronicled and like posted in like real time all the different stages of preparation, from milk chorus to like coffee selection to all of that. But the kind of pinnacle of that was I fully publicized my entire signature beverage recipe. I think a couple of days in advance, made all the sub recipes available, all of that, with the idea that if folks wanted to tune into my live stream of my routine, they also then had the ability to make what was a pretty dang close replication of what the judges were experiencing. And so just this moment of like, we're here on this stage doing this and experiencing this, but also like we don't even know how many other people are also getting to have this like high level experience.
Which I don't think people consider. Maybe they do, and I'm underwhelming it, but the importance or the impact of having the audience feel more connected in the world of barista sports, let's say barista brewers, coffee sport altogether. The importance of having the audience, the viewer, well, one, of just having audience and viewer, but two, to have them feel that they're connected and can understand and sort of live what we're doing on stage. Because what we're doing on stage on a general basis is absolutely not accessible to the average coffee drinker. We gatekeep, we hoard these coffees, we don't make them, available in the market. It's very goofy. But you've done a fantastic job through your content in breaking down those barriers and even bringing that onto stage and building a routine around that, which I think, for us to grow, I have the belief for us to grow the league, the participation, the importance of the participation and the sport itself. I like the word sport in coffee. It makes me feel less
Me
nerdy.
too.
uh, we need viewership. We need people
Yeah.
to tune
There
in
needs to be
and
buy-in beyond just the people directly involved.
absolutely. And that's if we trace back any sport, that's where they really start to see success, right? Is through viewership. And we need the audience to tune in and care about what the barista is doing on stage and how they're putting that together, and understand the connections to the farms and these ingredients and why those matter. And I think you've done a fantastic job in breaking down those barriers and connecting people around the world with what you're doing on stage, but also opening their eyes in reality to what many other baristas are doing. And I think that 2022 USBC was, a top quality presentation across
Thank you.
the world of coffee sport.
It
Coffee
was
sport,
it,
everyone.
it was a really fun one. That's a routine that is very very close to my there. I mean, I can't watch my routines, like I'll be honest. Like I don't think I have ever rewatched that routine specifically. But I remember how it felt performing it, and just even having a sense that if there's even one person out there that has remade this signature drink, like I've accomplished my goal. Like
Totally.
that in and of itself like feels really special. And so it was like a huge honor, and frankly a massive surprise that it was received as well as it was, because it was kind of like, I was really focusing on like the home barista in a competition that is not meant for the home barista. And I was like, this is either going to go so well or I'm going to fall like flat on my face. And I don't think there's an in between.
Totally. And you know what? There are so many home baristas that are now approaching competition.
It's super
I don't know
cool.
if you're aware of that, but around the world there are baristas, brewers, at all sphere of competition that they're home baristas. There was a person in the World Latte Art maybe this year or last year that was a home barista. There are many brewers that have been home brewers. There's some cup tasters that are just avid coffee consumers, don't work in the industry. So to see that bridge get gapped, to see that gap get bridged, I think is super important for the growth and development of the sport, the overall league, the whole thing. So,
Definitely.
tip my hat to you on the effort to kind of bridge that gap. Morgan, I want to transition a little bit into talking about your role with Onyx Coffee Lab. One of the most aspirational coffee businesses currently on the planet, in my opinion. I think doing some incredible stuff. There's a great team of people. I sound very complimentary, and I am very complimentary because I very much admire the work that is going in there and admire the people behind it. I would love to talk about your role at Onyx, what that looks like, how you fit that into your personal role.
Totally.
And Morgan drinks coffee, and I'll give you the chance to answer my smorgasbord of a question there.
No, I've had been like aware of and a fan of what Onyx was doing for a really long time. Like back when I was working in Corvallis, like I remember buying like pieces of their merch. Like I don't think I'd even drank the coffee at that point, but I was like, they're super cool. I want to rep
Super cool
that.
merch. They
Yeah,
do
super
a
cool
fantastic
merch.
job in merch. I've got some here in Calgary.
And it's funny thinking back to how all these things now like have weirdly connected and like intersected in my life today. But back when I was trying to figure out if I had time to do that like graduation internship that we were talking about earlier, I was like, are there such a thing as like coffee internships? And so I reached out to kind of what I viewed as like some of the larger coffee like companies. Like I think I reached out to like Stumptown and Intelli and probably Counterculture. And for me, Onyx was like on that list at the time. And I was like, hello, I'm in Portland or I'm in Corvallis, Oregon. I'm a marketing student. Do you have any internships? And of course, everyone was like, not really. But I had been interested all the way back then. And so when I connected with them as my like roasting sponsor for USBC, I was like just blown out of the water, like super honored to be able to be a part of the team for that period of time. And then after I won US, I think there was kind of like some parallel thinking that happened where I was sitting here being like, wow, I loved working with the team. I love what the company is doing. Like I would love to work for them if that's a possibility. And I think simultaneously that's when the marketing team at that time was like pretty dang small, but they were looking to expand. And so Andrea reached out to me and she was like, we're looking for another team member specifically focused on video. Is that something you would like? So it was perfect time, perfect place. And I joined the marketing team as one of the few remote employees. I travel out to Arkansas pretty frequently, usually in a average season that's not filled with competition or international travel. I'll be out in Arkansas every 6 weeks or so. But a majority of my role is in short form video. So a lot of our like social short form video, be it drink builds, we've done all sorts of like educational series. We even had a kind of office like comedy series called Life at Onyx for a period of time that I was running. That's the majority of my role. We'll do a ton of shooting while I'm out there in person. And then that'll come back with me for edits over the next couple of weeks. And then a lot of the drink build development, a lot of the like more home focused educational content pieces that we put out also are kind of in my bucket. So it's a lot of fun. Like it's a lot of different like kind of hats depending on whatever the season is demanding. We're currently gearing up for it feels like we were just doing this yesterday, but it's already like we're thinking about Advent again for this coming year. And so it's just like stuff like that where it's like every month is kind of a different set of projects, but it's so much fun. And we have a really, really, really phenomenal creative team that has grown a ton in the past kind of like 2 years, I think has been a bulk of it. But I'm just lucky to work with a bunch of really talented people and also like friends. Like it's a very good creative process.
Incredible. I like that. The friends piece, it's an important part of a healthy, work-life dynamic, and getting to work with your friends makes it feel like you're not working at all sometimes. And what a blessing that can be, right? In the overall. Morgan, I'm a creative barista. I'm working behind the bar today. I don't really know how to necessarily break out from my day-to-day routine. I don't know if I necessarily want to. Give me a few tips or maybe mental states or mentalities that you had in your personal journey to find yourself where you are today, a champion in many different roles in the coffee space. Can you give maybe 2 or 3 motivational tips for me as a creative barista?
Yeah. I think one thing that always comes to mind when this sort of like, archetype you've created, like I've gotten these questions quite a lot over the last couple of years. One of the things that I did a lot of back when I was in college is ask if I could take people out for coffee, like people who were doing really cool things that I wanted to like do someday or learn more about. Like, I, sometimes you get no's, but I find more often than not, people like to share what they do and what they're passionate about. And so I spent a lot of time when I was looking into potential coffee careers I would want to step into, finding people who were currently doing those roles and asking if I could interview them, if I could take them for coffee and just chat with them for 30 minutes. And through those, I got a lot of really, really incredible conversations that gave me a larger understanding of how just careers work in general. Like, how did someone get into that role, or what does this role actually entail, which can help one focus down a lot more into what you might want to step into in the future beyond just the classic trajectory of like barista, roaster, question mark, that's a really big thing that I tell people to like feel brave enough to like do, because oftentimes there's good results. I think the other thing too is like, I'm going to try not to use the Onyx catchphrase of like never settle for good enough, but like put yourself in situations and in environments where you are like the dumbest person in the room. Like one of the things that I always like to do is like find mentors in as many places or find experts in as many like places as possible, and like offer to be an assistant, offer to like be a fly on the wall, like find people who are really good at what they do and be willing to learn from them, rather than like getting to a point where you're assuming you know it all or like stagnating at any point. I think that like continual desire to learn and to like find what the next steps are is really illuminating for people to learn about themselves, but also will just drive like so much growth and connections.
So it's kind of break out of your comfort zone and lean into others that you can maybe learn from and take tangible value to improve or increase your perspective of your craft, something like that.
Yeah, I'm like, I've learned over the years, I'm a very big believer in like discomfort as like an avenue for growth. I'm like, I used to, be someone who was like, I want to be like safe and like not, I never want to like feel like bad, or I like don't want to feel like I'm like imposing on people or like trying to be like brave or anything. And really realizing that those moments that like feel uncomfortable for you, like stepping out of your shell and like asking things, discomfort like leads to like it'll eventually temper and you'll be in a better place than you were prior. And so leaning into those moments of discomfort and realizing there's something better on the other side is like such a powerful thing to absorb.
Absolutely. Yeah. I really like that, because then you can also look back and realize I used to think that was so uncomfortable. Right.
Like
And look at how far I've come.
even like the silly, like back, I was saying earlier when I started on like TikTok, like that was an embarrassing thing to be doing. Like I
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
did not like it when people said they saw something I did on there, but it's like learning to work through that and realize that like those pieces of content had impact on people, and like really feeling that rather than feeling embarrassed about that is like, that was a massive growth point for sure.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Is there a mentor or a lived experience that you might want to shout out,
Oh my
that
gosh.
you want to mention, maybe here in conversation? No pressure to do so. Just
Yeah,
curious if there's sort of one conversation maybe that happened that kind of shook you in that way, that is both uncomfortable but also pushed growth. And I suppose you referenced one earlier. I'll give you a cop out if you don't want to answer the question. You did reference one earlier. That was your mentor, your teacher in school, or your
yes.
advisor. I think you
Yep.
referenced them as your advisor in school, that sort of pushed you. But um, curious to know if there's sort of a line or a person that you might want to allude
Definitely.
to.
I mean, frankly, there's like so many. I could probably go on about like all the people that have impacted me over the years, but uh, as a coach through competition, Andrea Allen has been like a huge mentor of mine.
Absolutely.
I have been so grateful and like privileged to get to like understand her mind and how she approaches competition and also like business in general. And so she's been like really, really impactful in my journey. I think also someone who is like one of my best friends in the world and the creative director at Onyx, Nikki Wiegans. Um, she's like someone who is incredibly talented and creative and has a fantastic eye for video and photography, but is also very analytically minded about how she approaches like work organization, life organization. And so I have learned so much from her over the years. And like there's so many more, but I think those are two that in the last 2 years especially have been incredibly impactful.
I mean, tell a story about Andrea.
Please do.
Because she's also impacted my coffee career, whether she knows this or not. I'm not sure I've ever resurfaced this with her, but let's use this as the opportunity to do so. In 2017, I believe, maybe earlier, I was using a coffee from La Palme El Tucan for my competition, and I had been studying, what was going on in the competition landscape around the world, and I'm getting prepped to serve this in the Canadian Championship, and I see that she has just used this in the USBC, and I believe she came second that year, if I'm not mistaken.
I think that
And
was in
she
the
pulled,
run of second places.
yeah, the run of second places, the curse of number 2. She pulled, I believe, a 13-second shot, 1-3, and said that on stage, and I remember going, huh, what?
Surely
Like
that was a misspeak.
making some frumpy face and thinking, you can't do a 13-second shot, that can't be right. And I reached out to her. I don't know if it was through social media or through email or what the case was, and she gave me probably a 35-minute phone call. We've never met before, we've never conversed before. She's just come off the tail of second place in the USBC, and she gives me a 35-minute phone call running me through all the theory and practice and her sort of experience of drinking or extracting these shots in this way and what that did to the cup. And I went, whoa. And that really changed my perspective on espresso, but that also really changed my perspective on hospitality, because I saw through Andrea that we don't need to be connected in such a personal way to reach out and just help people, right? We'd never met before, and she just really opened the door for me to feel that it's okay to share what I know with others when they reach out. And now to this day, you know, somebody sends me something on Instagram, let's say, asking a question about this, that, or the other thing, coffee related, of course, or within the realm of reason, and I'll get back to them because of that moment, or that 30 minutes that I was given 8 years ago, 9 years ago, whenever this actually was, from Andrew Allen. Great
Yeah.
person, absolutely amazing coffee professional. I'm complimentary today. I'm very complimentary today. Wow.
I'm like, I could get a little tear. No, that sounds like Andrea in a nutshell, and I love that story. I think like the ability to like give gifts to people that maybe on your end feel like somewhat inconsequential, like to hear the impact that that sort of stuff has, like rippling forward, is super special.
I would be very surprised if she remembers that phone call, because
I'm
I
gonna
think
ask
for
next
her,
time.
yeah, I'll bring it up with her next time I see her too. But I would imagine for her that was just like a walk in the park, another day on the job, like just giving up the time. And for me, that was very much, I don't know if I want to go as far as saying a life changing phone call, but like very much opened or widened my eyes to what hospitality can be within our space, and how
Yeah.
just approaching everything with an open book sort of mentality is the way to go. And I see that through her as a person, but also through the business she's creating with the people she's creating it with. And I think very fantastic. Fantastic. Love Onyx. Big shout out to Onyx. Onyx Coffee Lab, everybody. Never settle for good enough. Morgan, I want to be conscious of time. I know you've got a hard out here. I want to ask you
Yeah, go for it.
I want to ask you one question that is just kind of related to time at the moment, in terms of history just being set in the coffee space. So today, as we record this, is August 8th. As of August 7th, the Best of Panama auction just happened. And whoa, the results. You know, there's three first place coffees that were claimed by Hacienda La Esmeralda: the Geisha Wash, the Geisha Natural, the varietal category. All of them set scoring records for evaluation. All of them, as of yesterday, have now set world records for prices. We
Yep.
saw a little over $30,000 per kilogram for the
Crazy
washed
number.
geisha. Crazy number. We saw 23,000 and change for the natural geisha. Sounds like good value. Sounds like a bit of a discount. And then we saw 8,000 per kilogram for the Laurina.
Hmm.
So all three of those are record prices that we've ever seen for coffee sold on a public registry, public auction, public domain, out there. Maybe somebody's done a private sale for more. Don't know. I'm very curious. I've had lots of conversations with industry professionals around the world. I'm very curious to know your thoughts on this sort of accolade, this sort of ripple effect or wave and conversation that it's created around the coffee space. Do you think this is a good thing? Do you think this is a bad thing? I would love to know where you stand on Hacienda La Esmeralda's record-setting prices in the Best of Panama.
Yeah, totally. Yesterday felt like a very, very loud day in the coffee space. There
Oh,
were
totally. Yes.
a lot of things flying around. We like chatted about this a tiny bit right before recording, and I really always want to be like, whenever I don't have enough information about something, I'm like, I'm lacking context here to like fully form an opinion. But you know, from what I have seen online, a lot of the discourse around this like mind blowing like price point is, why are we putting value here when there are so many other things in the world happening that we also should be focusing on? And I think I'm approaching this from like a two things can be true at once. Like I think like Esmeralda's achievement is like incredible. I think this is super crazy. I think like a huge, massive congratulations to them. Like what a like mind-blowing achievement. And I think a lot of the conversations I have seen are like this achievement is bad because these things, where I think this achievement is really, really awesome. It does, like, while also caring about, yes, there is like inequity in so many parts of our industry. There are so many things happening globally that, you know, on a scale are probably a lot more important than this one thing, but it's a two things are true at once rather than a binary, this is a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, sure. I think treading the line that there's positive and negative that will come from it, of course.
I also I always, you know, I think there's been a lot of prediction of like, I don't know, some of the conversations that I have seen seem to be stating what the future will look like because of this one thing that has happened. Whereas I prefer like a little bit more pragmatic view of like, we don't actually know how this is going to like ripple through the market, whether this is going to be like replicated, like whether we're going to keep one upping these numbers every year. I think there's a lot of gray area and a lot of unknowns, especially with how, you know, young the industry is on a whole comparatively to like, you know, compare it to the wine world as most people do. Like, I think there's just a lot of unknowns that we are going to be navigating moving forward rather than being able to say because of this thing, these things will happen.
Absolutely. I think that's a very well stated response. Bravo. I think that's
that's my
nice.
knife's edge. Yeah.
Response. No, I think that's perfect. That's perfect. I think it's really fascinating. You know, I've lived in Panama the last 6 months. I've been building a business there, Forward Coffee, trying to make Panamanian geisha varietals and all sorts of coffees more accessible rather than just in the competition scope. That's been my focus. So I've gotten pretty close to some of the history and understanding how things have played out. And one thing that I find really fascinating is the discovery of geisha happened through the Best of Panama, through the same platform 21, I think, years ago. You can fact check me on that and hit me in the comments if that's wrong. I think 21 years ago. When it sold in the auction, it sold for $21 per pound, which is $45 per kilogram. And the next highest coffee was something like $1.80 per pound. And it was a Katwai. And in historical auctions the year before, they had never broken double digits. So during this particular auction, I've been told that the whole platform shut down and they thought a hacker
they got DDoSed so badly.
They thought they got hacked. In reality, the auction platform wasn't set up to have the extra digit. So when it went over that digit, it shut the whole thing down. And if we think of that 21 years ago, a lot of the conversation in the industry was this isn't sustainable, right? These prices aren't sustainable. The C market price was at that time 80 cents or whatever it was. And these coffees were selling in auction for $1.30, $1.80, maybe $2. And if we follow that historically, that price has very much become a floor price for many farms around the world that have leaned into building a specialty coffee brand and focusing on quality and focusing on traceability, transparency, ethical practice in their business, focusing on what we value in specialty coffee world. And in the next auction, the year later, those same Katwais from the same farms started to sell for $7 and $8. And they saw this sort of lift in terms of value perceived in those coffees. And I'm so curious to know in this isn't a question for you, this is a rhetorical what does the future look like type of question. Do we start to see the floor rise with those brands that are realizing this is an opportunity on the production side to build a brand, to focus more on, specialty coffee and connecting closer with the client and becoming, more aware of all of the ethos that we sort of lean into in our industry, do we start to see the floor rise based on some of these higher prices that are climbing? Do I think 30,000 a kilo is going to be the floor for any farm? No, absolutely not. But do I think, going from $1 back then as a high price in an auction to now seeing where our specialty world is really developed to, is it realistic to see, the floor kind of rise all across the board? It'll take time. It won't be overnight, but that's
Yeah.
where I find it really fascinating. And maybe
I
this
feel it
is
is. I think also too, we'll start to see. I think we're already like definitely seeing it with like the integration of more, coffees that are usually just at competition level being served as like limited offerings, but like a stronger differentiation of like coffee segments of like they're like this, I think is a great example of what will probably be classified moving forward as like firmly in the luxury coffee category. Whereas
100%. Yeah,
previously it kind of felt like there's like commodity and then there's specialty, and they're both just kind of very large blobs. Whereas now specialty is beginning to get even more broken down into segments. And I think that's like where this lands. It's like we're not pretending this is like an everyday coffee. This is very
absolutely
clearly
not.
a very exceptional coffee that is going to be served to like a very specific segment willing to pay this much.
This is the Ferrari of the coffee world. We all dream of
Exactly.
driving it. We all want to sit in it, but we can't afford it. So we drive Honda Civic or Toyota Prius, right?
Exactly. But very,
Uh,
very delicious Honda Priuses.
yeah, exactly. I like that. Yeah, it'll be super fascinating to see how the world sort of continues to develop, and maybe it is, we got the conventional or commodity segment, and then specialty finds a more clear picture of where it sits within, either right on the cusp of that or just sort of above that segment. And then we have the luxury that shows up above all of that. I think could be very fascinating to see how things shake up over the course of the next, couple of years, couple of decades. And I think it's a big opportunity for people to lean into. I think there's a lot of opportunity that was just created for the rest of us, for people to lean in and sort of take maybe competition experience and put that out into the world and test, are people interested in these types of coffees in my market, wherever my market might be around the world. I think it'll be fascinating to see it all develop.
Most
Thank you for
definitely.
sharing your perspective and your point of view. Personally, I was hoping that Onyx was buying the Geisha Wash #1, and
I'll ask Dakota for next time, question mark.
he and I were texting during the auction, and he
Like, is that
sent me a
you?
text in the morning. I fell asleep. Oh, okay.
Oh, so
Uh,
funny.
yeah, so good. So good. Morgan, I'd love to kind of close on that, but I want to give you the opportunity. Where can people go to find you online? If anybody has any questions, maybe following this episode, is there somewhere that you prefer that they reach out to ask? I know you're the type that's absolutely going to get back to them in a timely fashion, whatever that might be. But
I do
maybe
my best.
I do
my
my best too, and
email
that's all we
inbox
can
would
ever
say
ask.
otherwise, but no. So I am Morgan Drinks Coffee is my handle on most platforms like TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Usually Instagram DMs are a pretty decent way to get at me. The other place you can find me is on Substack. I run a newsletter called Coffee for Here, and so Substack is also like somewhere that I'm pretty active on. So yeah, those are probably the two places. Or you can email me, and I am okay at answering emails, which is just morgandrinkscoffee@gmail.com.
I love that. And your website is morgandrinkscoffee.com.
It is, yeah. That links to everything, so you can find all the places.
Cool. So if you're listening to this, maybe start at morgandrinkscoffee.com. Go through Morgan's incredible catalog of signature beverages. Look forward to that publication to come out in the next year and a half.
Yeah, generously.
And hit Morgan up if you have any questions. Morgan, thank you so much for spending the time to be with me here on By the Drip. It is an absolute honor to have you on the show, and can't wait to put this out into the world and share our conversation and share your story.
Pleasure. Thanks so much.
Of course.